The Frasers must endure the horrors of the Revolutionary War in order to save what they have constructed. As a result, they leave North Carolina and enter the ravenous arms of independence, forcing our protagonists to make difficult decisions that could irreparably split their family. In the first scene of this new Outlander episode, Bree discovers her kids playing in the Laligroch cemetery. Bree can't help but inquire about whether they discovered her father's grave when her son Jemmy reveals that his sister wished to speak to their grandfather. She is unable to enter the cemetery because she is worried it will signal that her parents have actually passed away, even if they haven't. Later, Roger discovers her sobbing in his office while contemplating the box of letters from Claire and Jamie that they had received. When they open a fresh one, they learn that Claire and Jamie weren't actually returning to Scotland in 1777, but had instead been involved in the conflict. Claire and Jamie have in the past contributed to the revolution, and they are doing the same again. Jamie is once more a colonel overseeing a group of men at Fort Ticonderoga, while Claire continues to provide medical assistance to those in need, to the extent that the men there will permit her to do so. However, Jamie's situation is not ideal as he informs his commanders that the fort is exposed to a British Army invasion from the sea. They disregard his warnings, claiming that it is exceedingly unlikely that the British would employ such a plan given the challenging terrain surrounding the fort. Bree is likewise having trouble being taken seriously in the 1980s. She has a sense that her male employees would not be thrilled with her being essentially their boss as she prepares for her first day at her new job at the dam of La Cherokee, and she is correct. They trap her in a tunnel even though they are meant to tour her around the dam. Fortunately, Bree knows the layout of the facility by heart, so she can easily make her way out, though not without berating her co-workers in the process. Bree stumbles onto a shimmering portal on the way out of the tunnels, but as she tries to cross it, she hears a familiar buzzing in her mind. Has she discovered a brand new location where time travel is feasible? Young Ian, who has already traveled to Fort Ticonderoga, is currently being asked to deliver a letter to someone in the Mohawk hamlet where he formerly resided. Ian doesn't like the notion of seeing his ex-wife there and would rather they send someone else, but he can't get out of the job. He inquires as to why he might not be able to have children before leaving Claire. He tells her that the Mohawks blamed their baby's death on a clash of spirits when he and his wife Emily lost it. Ian is now concerned that he might not be able to have children at all, and is unwilling to subject another lady through the same loss that he and Emily did. He is informed by Claire that his first child's death could have been caused by a variety of factors, but it does not preclude him from having further children. Ian embarks on his mission after learning he has a decent probability of having children with a different woman. Ian asks Emily about her son when they run into each other in the Mohawk village. When he finds out she has a daughter as well, he apologizes to her for being unable to provide for her. He is relieved to see how well she is doing and wonders if he can meet her son. When the child appears, Emily accepts but seems uncertain, and we can see why when she does. It is clear that the young boy with the red hair that approaches Ian is his child. The boy tells Ian that he has heard of him, and that, according to his grandma, he is the offspring of Ian's spirit, so identifying his father. The boy will be given the name Ian James when Emily urges Ian to give him an English name. Ian feels relieved to have a living son. William and the hunters are also making their way to Fort Ticonderoga at the same time. Since he needs to re-enlist in the British Army, William isn't going there, but he does travel on a portion of the journey with Rachel and Denzel. They come upon a man on the way who offers to put them up for the night. As a result, the group spends the evening with Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, a strange couple who feeds them rats for dinner. It turns out that William wakes up in the middle of the night later due to the awful supper, for which Rachel can hardly stand it. He discovers Mr. and Mrs. Johnson prepared to kill them all, so it's a good thing. William kills Mr. Johnson in self-defense after a quarrel. Mrs. Johnson admits that they have lured individuals into their home before in order to steal everything they own and leave no witnesses, but William still feels awful about it even though he knew what he had to do. He had never before killed anyone, and he had assumed that it would happen on a battleground. Roger is dealing with his own issues while Bree is at work. He finds out that Jemmy has been in problems at school for using Gaelic, and that his teachers have even physically abused him as a result. Jemmy struggles to comprehend why speaking Gaelic is a negative thing, and Roger is likely prepared to attack the school with all of his Mackenzie wrath because of how his kid has been handled. Later that day, Bree tells her family about her experiences at work, while downplaying what actually transpired to spare Roger and the kids any embarrassment. She complains to her husband about the hazing after dinner and expresses her outrage that it occurred because she is a woman. The following day, she makes the decision to speak with her coworkers about the incident and threatens to fire them if they do it again. While caring for her patients, Claire is getting to know Denzel Hunter, a new surgeon. Denzel is a pleasant addition to the medical team for Claire, who up until this point has been consistently disliked by the lieutenant in command of the medical tent since she is a woman. The two immediately get along as they assist Walter, a patient who requires an amputation. When Rachel runs into young Ian, who has just returned from the Mohawk village, it is obvious that they are both delighted to see each other again. With Denzel at Ticonderoga, Rachel is there alone. Jamie is also having trouble persuading his superiors that the British pose a threat. He thinks that the only way he can persuade the Continental Army of the British plan of attack is to show that it is feasible after learning from Claire about the fall of Singapore during World War II. In order to prove his point, he sends some of his soldiers, but when he shows his general that a maritime attack is a possibility, the latter becomes enraged and ignores his warning. And sure enough, Jamie was right when he predicted what would happen next. The fort must be evacuated when the British Army arrives by sea to attack it. Walter, Claire's patient, is unable to go because his limb is not totally recovered. He and Claire say their final, heartfelt goodbyes as she abandons him to the British Army's unknown future. Bree and Roger's date is disturbed by Mandy's scream as she and her companions depart Ticonderoga. Roger runs outdoors to see if anyone is there after she was startled by someone outside the window. Although he doesn't discover anyone, he did earlier see some trash lying around the property and senses that someone is keeping an eye on them. After 2 eventful days, Bree is back at the Lallybroch Cemetery, where the episode began. She resolves to speak with Jamie's soul and inform him of what has been happening with her and her family, since she is now prepared to face the ghosts of the past.